Okay, baka katulog na iba. Okay, so good morning. Happy to meet. Happy na na-meet ko na yung iba sa inyo yesterday. Okay, so good morning everyone. Good morning guys. Cameras on tayo para mumukhaan ko kayo. Okay, so yesterday nahirapan ako kasi hindi ko kayo mamukhaan. Yan, para at least alam ko na yung faces nyo ngayon. And alam nyo na rin yung face ko. Okay, and damit ko na rin kayo. Okay, Mitzi nanto pa. Good morning, Mitzi.
Good morning, Chef.
Hirapan ka ba umuwi?
Opo, nabasa po.
Ako din. So, same lang tayo. Okay. So, let's do an attendance check first. Jen, ano nangyari dyan? Parang wala kang light. Yan, kakagising pa lang ni Jen. Good morning, Jen.
Morning, Chef.
Okay, so let's do an attendance check. Catherine, good morning.
Good morning, Chef.
Si Eden ba nandun kahapon?
Wala po, Chef.
Wala. O nga, hindi ko siya na-meet. Si Jeff, good morning. Cyrus, good morning.
Good morning po.
Si Gemma, nandun yesterday pero wala today. Ashley Mitzi, good morning. Sophia, wala rin daw yesterday. Leo, okay, Leo is out today. Jay, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, Keith. Si Keith ba nandun yesterday? Ano ba si Keith?
Tapos, di ko po alam na wala po bigla. Noong umaga po, nandun po siya.
Siya ba yung umalis? Meron umalis eh. Tama? Basta may umalis maaga.
Opo, Chef.
Okay. Si Jen. Jen, good morning.
Morning, Chef.
Okay. So today, bibigyan ko lang kayo ng tips. Kasi yesterday, I didn't comment too much. Okay. But kasi hindi ko class yun. So medyo respect on kitchen. I'll start off today's lecture. Our lecture kasi today is about pies and tarts. Okay? But I want to give you guys an additional info about Danish pastries. Okay? Kasi questions was bakit parang ang lagkit na ng dough or parang hindi maganda yung shape. Parang, and then how to cut it properly, how to do the trimmings, how to add your cream, your fruits. Okay? Turn off nyo muna yung camera, okay na? Okay? So let's start off with some Danish pastry info. Okay, so let's start with some cutting. Okay, before we go into our lesson talaga, formal lesson. Okay, let's start first with some Danish folds. Okay, so what you guys did yesterday was all about Danish pastries. Okay, similar to a croissant, these are laminated doughs. Laminated doughs are those with yung fat and dough, yung fat is sandwiched within 2 layers of dough. So, dapat magaganda yung layers niya. And your dough needs to be cold. As in cold talaga, cold to the touch. Okay, hindi siya pwedeng room temperature. Kasi it will start to deform. So magkakaroon siya ng mga wrinkles. Di ba? Ang daming wrinkles yesterday nung dough. Okay, kasi medyo mainit. Okay, so let's start first with some Danish folding. Okay, these are Additional lang from yesterday's lecture. Okay, so tama naman yung ginawa pero these are another additional folds that you guys can do and additional decorations that para hindi kayo nahihirapan sa ko lalagay yung cream, ano ba yung tsura nito dapat. Okay, so these are some things that you guys can do with your Danish pastry.
Attendance ng video.
We're doing this before we go into our formal class. Yung scheduled class na natin. Okay, so this is Danish pastry folding. Okay, so in shaping.
If someone can grab me the cinnamon sugar, please. So, attention everybody.
One thing that you will notice, may ruler. Okay, Danish pastries kasi dapat exact, especially if you're selling it as a big batch. Yesterday, it's just more of learning, okay? But if you're doing a big batch, kaya ang daming excess because things were done randomly. Okay, random yung haba nung spiral nyo, iba yung haba nung window pane, okay? Window Danish, okay? So, if you are selling it as a big batch, everything should be measured, as in talagang everything should be in cm or in inches. Okay, yun yung first tool, okay, that you guys need when you're selling a bigger batch of bread. Dapat eksakto kasi.
So the more handling, the more misshapen they're going to be. Yes?
Yes.
So when they're nice and cold, they are very cooperative. All right? So I'm just going to do 4, and I'll show you, maybe 2 different ones or something like that. Yes? Thank you. The window pane. And where's the egg wash, please? So take these, and I'll do not the window pane,
Pinwheel.
the pinwheel. The whole thing? That's all you want. All right. And then this one, I'll do that one. And then. Right, you only need to do the corner of one, yes? Each side. And so what side did I do? The left side? All right. And then I'm going to bring it to the middle. So I'll just put a little gap there, just for precautionary measures.
Okay.
Right? Pinwheel. And then, window pane. Can I use somebody's chef knife? It's just a little bit easier with the chef knife. Thank you. I just can never manipulate words. Alright, open it up. And then, little egg wash for the, there. I don't think we have enough half sheet pans, but anyway. And then I'm going to do filling for,
Different plates.
you know what? Yes. All right. And I'll do a little filling here and a little filling there. And you can do, opposing. It could be, something there and something different on the other side. All right. So I'll just do 2 of those. And then these, I can do, just give me a little container of water. You guys are very good with water. Can we pull those out and put them on right here behind you? Yes? So, take a little bit of water, wash, all right? So I could piece this stuff together, yeah?
Yeah.
Should do that. Should I? Yours are gonna be good too. Not even mine. Mine are probably not even that good anymore.
Oops, I know.
I'm gonna make them as good as you guys.
No, chef.
Actually, so no.
Okay, for those who just came in, we are just doing some review from yesterday's hands-on. These are Danish pastries assembling and folding. Okay, so everything, it's better to use a cold dough. Okay, so hindi pwedeng room temperature. So mas madali siyang i-shape and fold if you're using a cold dough. Okay, so less tendency kasi of your butter from melting. Okay, these are different ways of folding it.
I know. I took it, yeah. You could also do this a little differently and do a little. I forget what the figure eight does. Snail. That one's a snail, and then there's one that's like you. Don't tear it. Sorry. Right. You should be able just to do that.
Yes. With that seashell, seahorse.
All right, guys. Are you good? Are we
Yeah.
good? Are we good? And then I'm gonna come back in and fill those in. We'll do a little bit of egg wash.
After they
And,
proof, do you fill them in?
You see, we edit a lot of videos.
Okay, another clip on different ways of folding. Okay, so from yesterday's hands-on, I saw that there was a lot of trimmings. Okay, so with Danish pastry kasi, you exerted so much effort in laminating your dough, creating your lamination, creating your folds, diba? You had so many different folds and then you put it in the ref. So as much as possible, okay, you maximize everything. Another thing that I saw was yung rolling. Okay, I think si Mitzi yata ay napansin with the rolling. Okay, with the rolling, if your dough is cold, okay, huwag naman siyang frozen, basta cold enough, you can roll it so you can exert a little more pressure. Okay, but if your butter is at room temperature, kita nyo, even just slight push, nagde-deform na siya. Nagdidikit na siya dumidikit na siya sa rolling pin. So it's an indication that you need to put it back in the chiller. Okay, put it back in the chiller, let it drop down in temperature again. Okay, you don't want your butter melting. So butter will start to melt even by the touch, yung hand temperature natin. Okay, so as much as possible, keep it in the fridge and then handle it just a little. Based on the first video nga, it was the less you handle your laminated dough, the better kasi it's more cooperative. Meaning you chill it and then you only roll it, spread it, fold it, assemble it when you are about to cook it. Okay? So, another thing that I saw yesterday was after you done your pastry, your Danish pastry, as you can see, you can actually add your fruits, your jams, even before you bake. Okay, so pwede mo siyang ilagay, ipatong. It adds color, it adds caramelization in your bread. Okay, so there's an option to add it after, but you can always add it in before you put it in the oven. Okay, so yung fruits nyo, strawberries, cherries, okay, these ones are ideal for your Danish pastry. So, huwag ka lang maglalagay ng peaches in the oven. Actually, pwede, yeah, the jams, you add, I think strawberry jam and blueberry jam, okay? Aside from those, you can also add some cream cheese, add some powdered sugar. To add that, yung sugar kasi adds that parang sweetened appearance, but it also adds, once it starts to melt, it will add that glossy naman appearance to it, okay? So these are some decorative options for your Danish pastries. Okay, so with Danish pastries, di ba, it's laminated dough. Okay, you can see here, you put your fruit. Once your fruit is inside the oven, okay, sorry, lumampas. Okay, once your fruit is inside the oven, your fruit and your cream doesn't expand that much. Okay, kita niyo yung volume of your laminated dough, ang liit, ang nipis. But once it bakes, it will start to react with the heat. So it will double or triple in the size. Pero yung fruit mo will still remain the same. So what will happen with your dough is it will cover up your fruit. Okay, and your cream. Your cream is made of sugar also. So it will start to caramelize, adding a deeper flavor to your to the Danish pastry. Okay, see how much your Danish laminated dough expanded. Pero yung fruit nyo stayed the same size. Hindi naman siya lumalaki pag in-oven. Okay? See how it enclosed your fruit inside, and then you can see your cream cheese also having that brownish caramelization. Cover it with powdered sugar, and then that's how you present your Danish cheese.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so those are just simple things to do with your Danish pastries. Okay, so now we go into our lecture today. Sorry, I forgot one more thing. Okay, let's finish all the videos for Danish pastries.
It's time to put a little twist on things. Literally, I'm making cherry Danish twists and tropical fruit pinwheels. So for my tropical pinwheels, I've rolled out my dough into a rectangle, and I'm going to trim away the edges because now it's time to start adding a little polish to our pastries. And then to get a precise measurement, I draw notches at my 4-inch marks on each side, and this way it's easier for me to cut more precise squares. Just kind of follow the lines. Now to make a pinwheel, you take your square of Danish pastry dough and you want to cut incisions about 1 inch in from each corner. And then you take one corner in to the center and you do that for each of those angles. And look at that, you've got your pinwheel. Here we go, the pinwheels are done. You have to give them about 90 minutes to proof while I start on my cherry Danish twists. And this time I'll roll this into a 12-inch square. And then trim off the outside edges, just like I did the first round. To make the twists, you want to cut this square into 12 long strips. So they're each about 1 inch across. To make the twist, you simply twist the length of the pastry and then you twist it around itself. Tuck the little end piece in, and that is a textbook Danish twist. So just like the pinwheels, I'll set this aside covered to rise for about 90 minutes at room temperature. It's time to make the cherry filling. I love cherry Danishes. I have a cup of frozen pitted cherries that I've thawed, and what's really important is you want to drain them well. To help thicken it and sweeten it, I'm gonna add about half a cup of cherry jam. Gives it that perfect gloss and sweetness. mixed with a cupcake tropical fruit filling I'm putting on top. So I just press right in the center of each one. And now I'll brush the tops of these. So a little tip, as you're filling your danishes, use the back of the spoon to press into it, just to flatten that center, to cozy in the fruit filling you're adding. Now these are ready for the oven. It takes a 375 oven. Keep in mind, the tropical pinwheels, because they're not filled, they only take about 20 minutes. The cherry danishes, because they're filled, take an extra 10, so 30 minutes in total. Look at those. I pulled my pinwheels out 10 minutes sooner, and then I'll let the cherry danishes cool a little bit before that final layer of glaze. So to fill the tropical pinwheels, I want to top them with an assortment of tropical fruits. But to get the fruits to stick, I want to put a nice lemon curd underneath. I'll start by measuring 6 tablespoons of sugar into my pot. And I'll add to that a 1/4 cup of butter, get that heating on medium-high. And while it's heating, to extract the flavor of the lemon, I'll grate in a little bit of zest. I have a single whole egg and a 1/4 cup of fresh lemon juice. To help thicken it, 1/4 teaspoon of cornstarch. And I'll add it all up. Yeah, that way it's nice and smooth. I'll cover. Cinnamon curd in the center of each pinwheel. Now don't worry if it's not sticking exactly in place, because, of course, stars, you always glaze your danishes, and that'll be the finishing move. I'll bring over my cherry danishes that have now cooled, and I'll glaze everything all together. So you can be quite generous. With the apricot glaze, you almost have the glaze drip off the brush. Oh, doesn't that look stunning? And I'll do the same for the cherry danish. So now you have a really good sense of the styles of danishes you can make.
Bawat baba, lasap na lasap ang creamy.
Okay, so those are the things that you guys can make with your Danish pastry. So, ang dami nang pwedeng gawin. You can mix and match it with different fruits, jams, creams. You can have custard cream, lemon curd. You have your cream cheese filling. Okay, and you have different styles of folding. Okay, so ang dami nang pwedeng gawin. Okay, so now let's go to our discussion today. So that's just a review of what you guys did. Added info lang. Okay, so from what you guys were doing yesterday in your hands-on. A minute. Okay, now we will be discussing pies and tarts. Okay, so pies and tarts, okay, they have their own category in pastry, okay, because by itself, okay, it's another type of dessert that you need to assemble it, okay, so hindi siya parang one pot lang, okay, so you have a different process for your crust, different ingredients, different textures for your crust, and then you match it with different fillings. You have different ways of topping it. Okay? So when we discuss pies and tarts, okay? So the pies and tarts category, comes from the word tarte, tart. Okay? It is either translated to pie or tart. Okay? Usually a pie is covered. So meron siyang top layer of pastry. Okay? And then yung tarts are open. Okay? Yun yung parang definition. Okay. So, you have your pies covered. So, di ba, apple pie, the typical American apple pie. Okay, but covered siya with pastry dough on top. And then you have your tarts na open-faced, kumbaga, in terms of sandwiches. Okay? Pies is a baked dish. So, pies and tarts are baked dish. Usually made with pastry dough. So, meron ka pa rin dough on the side. Okay, so you will be given different types of ingredients to create your dough. Okay, it can be a savory dough, it can be a sweet dough. The only thing that you guys need to think of is the pairing. Okay, hindi ka pwede maglagay ng sweetened dough kung savory yung lalagay na kung meat. Okay, you have meat pies or pot pies. Okay, so your pie is composed of 2 or 3 things: your crust, your filling, and your topping. Okay, so what are the different types of pies? Okay, so pies, they come in variety of flavors, sweetness, textures. Okay, you have your open face, okay, which is also called your tarts. Okay, you have an open face pie having the crust only on the bottom. Okay, so they're known as tarts in France or in Europe. Okay, you have a double crust pie where you have your crust is not only at the bottom but only covers on the top. This is the American style pie. Okay, you can have decorative tops.
Ai, Deus.
Pie in mga appetizer pies, and then you have no bake pies. No bake pies are usually crusted with some crushed biscuits, crushed cookies, crushed dough. Okay, pre-baked, crushed and crumbled crust. Okay, so makikita nito yung mga ref cake. Yan, mga ref cake na merong pie crust. Okay, or Oreo cheesecake pie. Okay, these are some samples of pies. Okay? So there are an infinite number of pies kasi you can actually fill it up with whatever you want. You can put cream, you can put custard, you can put gelatin, you can put savory, you can put fruits, you can put ice cream. So pretty much you can do any type of pie. Okay? From nuts to custards to creams, so it can actually make different types of pies. Okay? The only thing that is standard are the different crusts. Okay, when we're talking about pies. Okay? So it all depends on the fat content of your dough. Okay? It affects the flavor and the flakiness. Okay? So flaky pies, you use your fat and then you put it in your dough in irregular large pieces. So, hindi siya evenly distributed in your dough. Okay? It creates a flaky pie kasi yung fat mo is scattered. Okay? Your mealy pie, your fat, your butter, your lard, or whatever your fat, whatever your ingredient is to add in fat, is cut into fine and uniform pieces. So, mas evenly distributed yung fat mo. Okay? Your crumbs, okay, your crumb crust, okay, typically uses melted butter, okay, melted fat. Kasi it is a binding liquid that you can use to bind together yung crushed pieces of your crust. So it all depends on the fat. Okay? So given the differences in fat, you also have different French terminologies. Okay? So I'm not too sure about the pronunciation of some. Okay? So this is your pâté brisé. Okay? This is your broken. So this means that this one is your flaky one. It uses broken pieces of fat, okay, to create your crumbs. So may malalaking pieces yan. Now you just mash using your hands to create your crust. Okay, so hindi siya evenly distributed yung fat. Okay, you have your sucre, pate sucre. These are sweet crusts. Okay, so these are sweet crusts. These are ideal for desserts, okay, but not really for savory. Okay, so desserts, they are close to crumbly. Okay, so in between siya ng crumbly and flaky. Okay, first one kasi flaky because of the large pieces of fat. Okay, so it's used most of the time for sweet fillings. Okay, but it can also be used for some quiche or savory treats. Pero most of the time, it's for desserts. Pâté sucre. Okay? Your pâté sablé, okay, it's a grainy crust. Okay? So this one naman is has a highest percentage of sugar. Okay? Because of the sugar content, very grainy yung texture ng crust mo. Okay? So it's crumbly, very crumbly, but very soft because of the high sugar and then high concentration of moisture. Okay? So, yung sandy, why do I want a sandy crust? Because it matches yung mga nuts, almonds, creams, okay, yung very smooth. So you mix and match the textures of your crust with your smooth cream filling. Okay, so those are the three common types of crust. Okay, pâté brisé, pâté sucré, and pâté sablé. Okay, so when you are doing your French pies and tarts, you will be hearing a lot of these ones. Okay, so what's a pie versus a tart? What's the difference? Okay, so some say it's just a covering, but if you look at the shape and size of a pie and tart, they have slight differences. Okay, pies are composed of sweet and savory filling, and their shape is generally made from a round slope-sided pans. Okay, so medyo slanted na konti. Yung tarts, medyo shallow and straight edge. Okay, pero sobrang konti lang ang difference nilang dalawa. Okay, so tarts can be used to you can create small tarts. Di ba usually tartlets, yun ang alam natin eh. With glazed fruits, cream, and chocolate. Yun naman natin tinatawag kahit mukha siyang slanted na pilets, yung mga maliliit na yan. So usually, the small ones, the open face, are called tartlets or tarts. And then you have the covered ones with a slanted side, pies. Okay, sobrang konti lang ang difference. Okay? When we're talking about pies and tarts, there are some terminologies that you guys need to pick up. Okay, number one, blind crust. Okay, so when you are baking the crust, okay, you bake it without the filling. Okay, you create holes at the bottom. So using a fork, you prick the bottom of the crust to create so that your moisture from within the dough and from under will escape, making the crust level. So hindi siya magbabubble or hindi siya magkakaroon ng uneven surface. Okay? Some would actually add in some mga beans. Yung beans in a parang large beans. Okay? To add weight to your crust para hindi siya umangat. Okay? So your blind crust is you pre-bake your crust. Okay? So hindi mo siya i-shape tapos lalagyan kagad ng filling and you put it in the oven. Okay? You need to pre-bake your crust so that you will have that form and shape. Okay? Bakit hindi ko siya i-finish baking? Bakit pre-bake lang? Bakit partial baking lang? Okay? You still want to bake it with the filling. Pero since your crust, imagine your crust, if you put your filling in, your bottom side will not bake as much as compared to the top. Kasi meron na nakapatong sa ibabaw, which is liquid, which is more moist. So usually, pag ganon, yung crust mo under will become soggy or hindi siya titigas masyado. Okay? So you par bake first your crust. Okay? So that it will retain its form and shape. But you do not finish baking it. Once you par bake it, pull it out, let it cool, and you fill it up with your desired filling. Okay? So, merong par baking process lagi ang crust. Same with tarts, same with tartlets. Okay? You bake it, okay, and then partially let it cool, and then you fill it, and then you finish baking it again. Okay? So, it will make your crust, your bottom crust, cook, and then it will retain its shape. Okay? So there's also a fluting or crimping. Okay? Fluting is adding decorative edges to pastry. Okay? So similar to, di ba, yesterday, I think after you pull out your Danish pastry, parang hindi na alam kung sino may-ari nito. Okay? So this fluting process, okay, is a type of signature. Okay, it doesn't affect the flavor. It doesn't affect the texture of the pie. It's more of a signature. This is a parang branding. Okay, so if you flute it, it's your signature as your pastry, as somebody's baking. Okay, this is my pie. Okay, some would do the extreme na meron pa silang decorative edges. Okay, para lang ma-identify na this is my pie. Kasi anybody can make their own pie. Anybody can put in their own filling. So you want to have that distinct signature na this is my recipe. Okay, so it's adding the decorative edges to your pie crust. Okay, it's called fluting. Okay, or crimping. Now we go into the different pies. Okay, so let's start first. Yung pie kasi is very famous in the US, especially during Thanksgiving. Okay, so let's start first with some Thanksgiving pies around the US to give us an idea how diverse or how people serve their pies in a variety of ways.
Crazy in my family. Thanksgiving is one of my favorites.
And this pie will always be there. Nobody does it quite like we do. Hi, my name is Erin Van Sloten, and today I'm going to be making my grandfather's recipe for blueberry tapioca pie. Tapioca in this recipe is being used as a thickener. Some people might use cornstarch or other ingredients, but definitely in the Midwest we use tapioca. This pie, I originally heard from my grandfather. He would make this pie every year for my dad's birthday. He would wake up at 6 a.m. to come and bring this pie to my dad. So if we're lucky enough, we'll be able to pick fresh blueberries since Michigan is known for its wild blueberries, and everyone will hoard them for the summer months knowing that we're going to want them for Thanksgiving. I just have to try one. You have to make sure it's good first. When I was too young to bake, I would just sit at the kitchen table and wait until my sister or my dad or whoever else was making it would turn their back, and I'd grab a few blueberries just in case. So usually if you have extra crust left over, me and my sisters would take that extra crust and cut a B out of it for my dad's name, Barry, or, also for blueberry pie, because my grandfather would always take the crust and poke holes in it so that it made his initials. Pie is always a staple for Thanksgiving, and it's a real tradition in my family. Even if my sisters have all moved and I've left, we always come back for the holidays, and we know.
Okay, another thing with pie, especially when you cover them, is you need to make incisions on top. So these incisions will let the steam escape. Okay, so why do we want the steam to escape? Okay, if you have your pies fully covered and you do not create that incision on top, your pie will start to balloon. Okay, so lalaki siya ng lalaki, masisira na yung shape of the top cover. So parang, sabihin na natin, sa rice cooker, para alam ng lahat. Okay, rice cooker, di ba? Try mo takpan yung maliit na hole on the side. It will stop the steam from going out. Okay, but makikita niyo yung cover naglalaro. Okay, so nagpa-pop siya. Kasi your steam will constantly, your rice will constantly be heated. It will create that steam. If there is no escape hole for that steam, it will destroy the cover. Similar to your pies, if you do not create that incision, makita niyo yung pie niyo, wala nang cover pagkatapos i-bake.
We can gather around food, and this pie will always be there. Just like how my grandfather used to make it.
Hi, my name is Bianca Lambert, and I am cooking my Aunt Vivian's sweet potato pie. My aunt is the only person in our family that still bakes sweets. She's the only person that's kind of carried this recipe over from my grandmother and just kind of passed down those southern roots. So the way that you know your potatoes are done, just kind of give it a little poke or a little stab. That's how you know that it's ready. I grew up in Atlanta, and my parents are from this town in Alabama called Monroeville. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, like whatever holiday you can think of, we would drive down. Well, my grandma, I remember, like she would just always have all this food, and she didn't have a lot of money and all that, but you could guarantee that there was going to be a spread. Everything that you ever wanted, she knew all your favorites, and that was her way of showing love. And I feel like that is what Southern cooking is all about. It's just a way to show love and give back to your family in a different kind of way. I'll say this, I'm always looking forward to this pie for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I might even volunteer to make the sweet potato pie this year. Nobody's probably gonna let me do it though. Or they'll let me do like one, and then she'll do all of them. Anybody makes anything good, like if you know something's really good at Thanksgiving, it just goes. So if you don't get to that pie before it's gone, forget about it. Yeah, you better get it when you can. And people, I mean, we do share, it's very much about community, but people like what they like. We all know each other's favorites, so yeah, once it's gone, that's it. This is just one of my all-time favorites. It's the thing I can eat. I mean, I can eat a whole pie by myself. So my aunt surprised me by letting me know that she uses lemon extract in the sweet potato pie. When she said it, I was like, is she making a mistake? But it's been perfect for years, so I'm sure she knows what she's talking about. Here's the thing, I don't think anyone can cook sweet potato pie like anybody in my family. Nobody does it quite like we do. But hey, to all the aunties and grandmas and people out there, like, you guys are amazing, and I just think we're all partial to our family's cooking. Thanksgiving for us is just like the best time of the year. Probably my favorite holiday just because it's so much about family and food and eating and just having a good time. It tastes so good. My aunt's gonna be super proud.
My name is Brendan Dahl, and today I am making my mom's amazing pumpkin pie. It is my favorite thing in the entire world. My mom is always the one who makes the pies for Thanksgiving, 100%. We are allowed in the kitchen. Honestly, everyone kind of congregates in the kitchen, in part because it smells so good, but also because that's where my mom is. So I'm gonna talk to her and keep her company while she makes us delicious food. This is my grandmother's pie dough recipe. So the whole pumpkin pie recipe is actually, I say it's my mom's, but really it's her mother's. It's not super complicated in its ingredients, but it's a very dense, spicy pie, which I think is like maybe a little more old-fashioned. It's a very, very old family recipe. I'm from Arkansas, and I do feel like pumpkin pie is popular there. But there's kind of a big division. There's pumpkin pie people and there's pecan pie people. And we say pecan, not pecan. There are two distinct camps. Honestly, my mom makes both, but the pumpkin is like the star and the pecan pie is for like the other folks. I don't want to imagine a life without pumpkin pie. This pumpkin pie, it is a holiday staple, but honestly, like I live across the country from my mom and our whole family is really spread apart. So even when we go back random times during the year, like if I go back in April, I get pumpkin pie. If I go back anytime, I get pumpkin pie. It's definitely the main comfort food that like makes me feel like I'm home, and like I don't feel like I'm officially home until I've had this pumpkin pie, regardless of what time of year it is. I would like to say that we like chip in like, oh, my mom makes the pies, but like I have an amazing casserole or something, but I bring nothing to the table. Literally. I like Thanksgiving a lot, actually. I love holidays, but I'm not someone who gets like really obsessive over holidays. But for me, Thanksgiving is one of my favorites because it's so food-based. Anytime you have a lot of food, I'm down to be there. So Thanksgiving is probably my favorite holiday because like you know that the meal's gonna be on point. Typically I celebrate Thanksgiving with my mom and my brother Chris, if he can make it. We don't really have that big of a family. I'm in California, my brother's in Texas, I have another brother in Kentucky, and it's just been hard the last few years to actually get everyone together. So some years it's just me and my mom, some years it's like, you know, a couple of us or a couple extra, like some cousins here and there, but we're a pretty small group. Making this pie is definitely bringing back some nostalgia because it's actually been a couple years since I've gotten to go home for Thanksgiving. I'm not sure I realized how homesick for this pie I was and homesick in general, so this is a nice treat. Honestly, of all the Thanksgiving foods, really all holiday foods, regardless of holiday, this is kind of like the big one. This is the one mainstay. Like on Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, sometimes we'll have like ham instead of turkey or this instead of that. But the one thing that never changes is pumpkin pie. Oh, it even smells perfect. Oh. It's the perfect pie. It's absolutely perfect.
I'm Ray Pahar, and today I'm making my Thai tea pie. When I first brought the pie out to Thanksgiving, my family was like really surprised that you could get Thai tea into a pie flavor. And since then, it's just been one of those things that my family just expects me to bring to Thanksgiving every year. So my sister-in-law will bring two traditional pies, apple or pecan or strawberry, and then I'll be in charge of the two Thai tea pies, which usually goes by faster compared to the other pies, since again this is not something that you would be able to get at your local pie store. Thanksgiving gets crazy at my family because it's like we're loud, there's a lot of us, we have family hashtag. My last name is Pahar, so we had a TY, so it's Pahardy, because there's so many of us that we had a hard time getting photos whenever we would take like a group photo or any kind of photo during a party. So we just made the hashtag so that you could look it up and find the photo online. But now it's just become like a fun thing. So my family came out to California in the 1980s. The family was still relatively small. It was just my mom, my dad, my like 6 older half siblings. And as the years grew and as we all became adults, everyone brought something to the table. So the table just got bigger. What was originally probably close to a traditional Thanksgiving became something that is pretty much a giant Thanksgiving party. It's like now we can't really fit into one table, but we'll fit into one house. As we all get older, everyone brings something new. So if I showed up to Thanksgiving without a pie, specifically this Thai tea pie, they would put me in the kitchen and make this pie. The first year that I actually made this pie, I made one Thai tea pie, and then I also made an Earl Grey pie. My family liked the Earl Grey pie, but it just wasn't as popular compared to the Thai tea pie. And my family's like blunt enough that they'll be like, this is good, but it's not great. We'll just get 2 of the Thai tea pies instead of a Earl Grey pie. For the amount of people that we do have over for Thanksgiving, someone is always bound to forget something. Since I'm traveling over there, I don't really end up forgetting.
Okay, another thing that you can do with your crust is to add in a layer of chocolate. Okay, so yung chocolate, kasi in some crumbled crust, your filling is so liquid that it will seep into your crust, making your crust really soggy. Okay, so what will the chocolate do? So parang siyang, if you think about it, chocolate is like your waterproofing agent. So you cover your crust with chocolate, like similar to this video. You cover it with a layer of ganache or chocolate, melted chocolate. It will seal up. So it will separate your filling from your crust, making your crust bake and stay as crispy as, and then your filling will also not seep into the crust, making it soggy.
Getting a pie or anything, but there have been years where we would forget like the lumpia, someone would forget the rice, someone would forget the mashed potatoes. With big families, you have to move fast. If you're gonna hope that someone's gonna save you a slice of a pie or a piece of a cake, sucks for you because not everyone's gonna say that. My favorite way to serve the Thai tea pie is to give it a nice, healthy dollop of fresh whipped cream, just because it ties it all together and it looks really pretty. I love sharing with my family, but this one is all mine.
Okay, so pies in the US are very famous, especially during Thanksgiving. Okay, and then they make it more personal. Okay, so by adding, since you can actually put in a lot of flavors. Okay, so it makes it very personal for them to create their own pies, create their own flavors. Okay, so now let's do the traditional American apple pie.
Hey guys, Thomas Joseph, and today we are tackling a very popular kitchen conundrum, and that is the all-American apple pie. Now, there are tons of apples in the marketplace, and Thanksgiving is right around the corner, and today I'm going to show you all of the tricks, tips you need to have a wonderfully successful apple pie. Before we get into the apples and the filling, I want to show you guys how to roll out pie dough nice and easily. Now, this is our classic pâte brisée pie dough recipe here. You can find this recipe on marthastewart.com. All butter crust, flour, salt, and a little bit of sugar, and of course some water. I'm going to take this disc and roll it out on a lightly floured work surface, dust a little on top, using a rolling pin that is also lightly floured. You want to roll your dough out, pushing in one direction, and then you're going to rotate the pie dough every single time. This really helps in creating a nice even circle when you're rolling, and it prevents the dough from sticking on the surface. So pushing, turning the dough itself. And I'm not really applying pressure when I roll back the rolling pin, so I'm just really rolling out the dough in one direction. So keep rolling. If you see that the edges of the dough are beginning to crack, what you can do is you can take a bench scraper and just very gently push those cracks back into the dough. But if you've made your pie dough just right, and we have done numerous kitchen conundrums on the perfect pie dough, you should be very successful at rolling it out. So I'm looking for about a 13-inch diameter on this rolled dough, and that will fit nicely in a 9-inch pie plate. And I think whenever I'm making double crust pies, you guys, I think I've said this before, using a glass pie plate is really key. One of the major issues people have with apple pies and other double crust pies is that the bottom crust never cooks. It's always kind of soggy in the end. And you really need to have that glass pie plate because it's the only way you'll be able to see whether or not you're cooking your pie long enough to get a crisp bottom crust to your pie. So this looks good. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll this dough up onto my rolling pin, and this really is the easiest way to get it into the pie plate. If you have any excess flour on the bottom of your crust, you can brush it off with your hands, or you could use a pastry brush, but just gently pick up the dough and then kind of unravel it into your pie plate. And if you guys are enjoying this recipe, remember to like and subscribe. So I'm just gently fitting this into the pie plate here, and then this needs to go into the refrigerator to chill, and I'm gonna roll out my other crust. All right, so the pie dough has been rolled out, it's chilling in the refrigerator, and now we're getting to the filling, to the apples. Now, it is that time of year. There are a lot of really great baking apples out there in the marketplace, but maybe you're unsure of which apples to purchase for your apple pie. Well, you can definitely find this guy here in your supermarket. If you don't have a farmer's market or a fancy specialty market, Granny Smith apples are available across the United States and in most supermarkets. So Granny Smith, they're really tart. They are great baking apples because they maintain their structure, so they don't melt down into mush or to applesauce, and that's really the key characteristic that you're looking for in baking apples. So Granny Smith, I also have Cortland apples here. This is a Braeburn, which is also a great baking apple, and we have Mutsu as well. Now, if you can find multiple varieties and create a mix, you will get a better flavored pie, and you will get slightly varied texture, which is really ideal when you're making an apple pie. So find as many as you can, and in total for this recipe you're going to need 4 pounds of apples, which I already have peeled, cored, and cut up into about 1/4-inch slices here. Now to this, I'm going to add the spices, the thickening agent, and the sugar to counteract all of that acidity that's in the apples. But first and foremost, to make this a spiced apple pie, I'm using a little bit of lemon zest in addition to the warm spices that are typical of an apple pie. So I need a tablespoon of lemon zest here, and in addition to that, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. And the lemon juice really helps to complement the sugar that you're going to be adding. It adds a nice bright flavor. All right, so the zest goes right into the apples here, and 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. And that looks pretty good. And so now it's time to add the spices. I have a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Ground cinnamon goes really well with apples. Some freshly grated nutmeg. Just a few grates, and that's good to go. A teaspoon of coarse salt. I have 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar, and I'm going to complement this with 1/4 of a cup of regular granulated sugar. So in total, it's about a cup of sugar, and then 1/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour. And the all-purpose flour here, what it's going to do, the starches in the flour are going to help thicken all of the juices from the apples, so it won't be a soupy mess. So mix this together. You want to make sure that the flour and the sugar is completely covering the apples. You want to make sure that the spices are hitting all of the apples. I'm going to add some butter. This is 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter that's cut into cubes. It's chilled. And what the butter does is it helps to thicken the juices, and it gives a nice shininess to the syrup that the apples will sit in. So mix this together, and then I'm going to pull out the pie dough that's in the pie plate and also the rolled out top. And we are going to assemble this apple pie. Right, so our crusts are out of the refrigerator, and now it's time to assemble the pie. And this is a very important time. you need to know a few tricks here. So instead of what most people would do is they would just take the bowl and dump the apples right into the pie shell. What I think is a better idea, and you have to get your hands dirty a little bit here, guys, is to take the apples and arrange them in the pie plate. Now what this does is if you fit them in nice, neatly and snug, it decreases the amount of air pockets that you would get or spaces that don't have any apples. And in the end, what will happen is when you bake your pie, the apples cook down, right? And so they are going to eventually create an air pocket in between the top crust and the apples themselves, the final baked apples. And what that usually does is the crust then either collapse or you have a huge gap between the two. So fitting the apples nice and neatly and nice and snugly together decreases the amount of negative or absent space. So kind of putting them in here by hand, it might take a few minutes extra, but it really will give you a successful pie in the end. And then don't leave any of this stuff behind in the bowl, you guys, because this is extra flour and sugar, and you really need it to balance out the juices and the apples. If you eliminate some of the flour here, if you just poured this down the drain or threw it in the garbage, your pie filling might not get as thick as it should be, which will eventually give you a soggy crust. So scrape all this out, make sure it goes in on top of your apples. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top crust and place it right over the bottom, the filling. And at this point, take a pair of kitchen shears and trim the crust. You want to make sure that you're leaving about a ½ inch border around the rim of the pie plate. Now with this leftover pie dough, you could cut out little leaf shapes or little apples or something like that to put on top to embellish your top crust, or you could just bake it off with a little bit of cinnamon and sugar and have like a little snack for the kids. And now, once we have this trimmed nicely, what you're going to do is you're going to take the edge that overlap and you're going to pinch, and maybe even using a little bit of bench flour on your fingers, you're going to pinch the pie dough together, and then you're going to turn it underneath, right on top of the lip of the pie plate. So pinch, turn, building up the edge, building a crust, which we're going to eventually crimp. And what this does is it seals the crust together and will help to keep the juices and the filling inside the pie. It won't erupt and come out the sides. All right, and now for a decorative edge, you're gonna crimp the crust. And you wanna really press with your thumb, see how I'm pushing with my thumb here, into the pie plate so that the crust then sticks to the edge of the plate, doesn't move, and keeps a really beautiful fluted edge. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some vents in the top crust of the pie, and this is really important with double crust pies because these vents will allow the steam to escape. And what is steam? Well, steam is excess moisture, and you want to make sure that you let the excess moisture cook out and away from the pie filling so that it allows the bottom crust to crisp up and get brown and not soggy. So a few vents here and there, and then get this right into the freezer or the refrigerator, and it needs to chill for about 20 minutes until the crust is nice and firm and set, and then we're going to egg wash it and throw it right into the oven. All right, so the pie has been in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. It's nice and chilled and firm. And now to make an egg wash, I have an egg yolk and a tablespoon of heavy cream. Just going to mix this together, and you'll get a different shine to the crust depending on which egg wash you use. Now take a pastry brush and just brush on the egg wash. You don't want to leave any big pools of egg wash because that's just going to scramble up on top of your pie. You just want a nice light coat and something for the sanding sugar to adhere to. Now make sure your oven is preheated to 400 degrees, and I like to have the rack in the lower third of the oven because generally the bottom of the oven and the back of the oven are the hottest places in your oven, and we really want to concentrate a lot of heat on the bottom of the pie to crisp up that bottom crust. This looks Lovely, and now for a little bit of sanding sugar. I'm using fine sanding sugar. I prefer to use this to the coarse sanding sugar, but if you only had coarse, go ahead and use it. You could also simply use regular granulated sugar. It won't give you as shiny of a top, but it will certainly give a sugary crunch. But right now, once you have the egg wash and the sugar on, get this right into your oven. It's gonna bake for about 25 minutes at 400 degrees until the crust is lightly starting to brown and is set. And then you're gonna reduce the temperature to 375 degrees, and the pie's gonna bake for about an hour to an hour and 10 minutes, guys. And take a look under the bottom of the pie, guys. Make sure that bottom crust is brown. Into the oven we go. So the pie has been out of the oven, it's cooled completely. It took almost an hour and a half, a little over an hour and a half to bake, and you get a wonderfully baked pie with a filling that's set, but not too juicy, and a crust that is crisp. And as always, guys, if you have any kitchen conundrums, reach out to us using the hashtag Kitchen Conundrums. We love to hear from you. Enjoy your apple pie, guys.
Okay, so that's your typical American apple pie. So you need to use the green Granny Smith apples kasi the red ones, they're not ideal for baking. Okay, kasi magiging mushy lang yung apple pie na. Make sure that you use the green ones kasi the green ones are ideal. But it's a bit on the sour side. So what I do with my apple pie is I mix a little of the red because the red adds in some sweetness. Okay, so I mix some of the red with the green Granny Smith to create that balance. Okay, another thing that he mentioned was after you mix all the flavor, your cinnamon, your sugar, with your apples, you just don't dump it on your pie crust. Okay, it will contain a lot of liquid. And it's better to space out everything. So medyo may pagka-OC yung pagkakalay mo, latag mo dun sa loob ng pie crust. So you do it one by one so that you can avoid having open pocket spaces. Okay? Now let's make a cream-based pie. Okay, this is your banana cream pie.
And today we're making this wiggly, jiggly, dreamy, and delicious banana cream pie. It is so refreshing, no artificial flavors, just lots of loveliness. Let's get started. You're going to be pouring that delicious filling into the pie crust of your choice. I suggest a beautiful homemade butter crust. You can click up here for my perfect pie crust recipe. It has all my tips and tricks on how to get it right every single time. But let me take you through it real quick. 300 grams or 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour right into the bowl of your food processor. 1/4 cup of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt. Now whiz it up, just pulse so it mixes everything together. I'm adding 1 cup or 226 grams of cold cubed butter. Okay, let's pulse this up a couple times. Drizzle in a 1/4 cup of ice water mixed with some vodka. But we're gonna dump this out right onto our pastry mat. I like at least give it, I would say, an hour in the fridge. Once it's chilled, you're going to roll it out, plop that into your pie tin, so trim the excess pie dough off with some scissors. I'm going to hold my thumb out and then press in like this. So I'm going to get a nice kind of runny edge, but the pie will still be clinging to the glass edge. Add some parchment paper, some tin foil to support the edges, fill it with pie weights or beans, whatever you want. Bake it 425 for about 15 minutes. Remove it from the oven. Remove all of that tin foil, the beans, the paper. Give it an egg wash. Tent the outside. Bake it again for another 15 minutes at 425, and then reduce the temperature to 375 and bake until it is golden brown. Now for the filling, we're going to add 2 eggs. 1, 2, and then 2 egg yolks, so we can separate those whites. You can add them to your morning omelet, use them to make a meringue, whatever makes you happy. 1 yolk, and 2 yolks. Wash those hands, whisk up your egg mixture. If only life were as easy as whisking eggs. Okay, now let's deal with the rest of the filling. So into a kind of larger, heavy sauce pot. When you say heavy sauce pot, you mean the one with thicker walls, doesn't have to be copper. It has thin walls, and they get really hot when you're heating things up, and they will scald your milk mixture or whatever you're using. So when you're buying pots and pans, the ones with the thicker walls are going to be better for you. FYI. So into that pot, I'm adding 1.5 cups of sugar, using white and cane sugar because I ran out, but any granulated sugar works. 1/3 of a cup of cornstarch. This stuff feels horrible when you touch it. But it's really great for thickening things up. So 1/3 of a cup is going to be about 50 grams. 50 grams of cornstarch. You can take out maybe 10 grams if you want to have it be a little bit more runny. The consistency is kind of more silky. If you add more in, it'll be more almost gelatinous, and you'll get really clean pieces, but the mouthfeel isn't as nice. So it's kind of up to you and personal taste. Oh my gosh, my hands.
A new Anlin Gold 5X to help improve balance, muscle mass, and help build endurance.
I'm adding in 1/4 teaspoon of salt, plus a pinch. There we go. And now 3 cups of cold whole milk. Whisk it all together. Save your scale. Banana cream pies are so delicious, but I've been scarred by having bad ones in my youth, as like in diners where they added in, I think, banana extract or banana essence. Blech, not cool. Not cool. The filling we're making is actually going to be a really nice vanilla custard. And you'll have pieces of banana throughout, on the bottom, on the top, with the whipped cream, and it'll be really delicious and having those banana and vanilla notes without any artificial flavors. Once your ingredients are all whisked up, place it on medium-high heat and get to stirring. You don't want to let any of the milk burn, so just keep on moving, It'll warm up slowly, but then you'll see it start to thicken, so keep an eye on it. It'll take maybe 5 or 7 minutes. You really want to keep the mixture moving because the bottom is going to thicken up first. So when it starts to thicken, you need to really whisk so that you get a nice uniform thickness. Otherwise, the bottom will just burn and the top is going to be liquidy, which is sad. So it's getting really frothy, but underneath, look at this, it's starting to thicken. Okay, there we go. So now it's thickened, I'm going to reduce the heat to medium. Oof, my hand. Reduce the heat to medium, and then just keep stirring. You really want to make sure it thickens up. And we're going to stir on medium for about 5 minutes. So right now, I'm going to add in about, half a cup or so of my hot mixture into the eggs while I whisk. We're tempering the eggs. So we're heating them up so that we can add them into our hot milk mixture without anything scrambling, losing the consistency that we want. Once your eggs are tempered, now we can add them back in while we're whisking. Okay, we're going to cook on medium for 2 more minutes while we whisk. These eggs are just going to get cooked up, and it's an additional thickening agent as well. It's making it taste delicious. 2 minutes off heat. We're going to transfer our hot mixture into a bowl. Get all that delicious custard out. And we're going to now whisk in a tablespoon of vanilla. You can use vanilla bean paste if you want. If you're doing that, I would reduce it to maybe 3 teaspoons. Is 3 teaspoons a tablespoon? Let me know in the comments. I'm horrible at conversions. But 1 tablespoon of vanilla and 4 tablespoons, or like 60 grams of butter. Whisk that together. The butter's going to melt in there, make it really smooth and creamy, and the vanilla, of course, is just like stinking amazing. All right, a nice creamy mixture. We're going to cover this up. I'm just going to eat this right now. All like yum. Cover that with some plastic. And when I say that, I don't mean cover the top. I mean place the plastic onto the surface so that you're preventing a skin from forming. It's not the end of the world if you get a skin. It just means you're kind of like having to snack on that custard skin instead of using it in your pie. This can go into the fridge for a little while. It's really hot. You could just put it directly into the pie crust, but it's better to have it be a little bit more room temperature. Custard is cooled, or my swap out is. That's still a little piping hot. And we're gonna add some bananas in now. It's time for bananas. Let's cut them out a little bit of a diagonal. If you want to make this pie a couple days in advance, make the pie shell, fill it with your vanilla filling, and then when you're ready to serve it, pile on a bunch of bananas on top, add some more whipped cream, bananas on top of the whipped cream. You don't want them to be like really brown and kind of like lose that ripe banana consistency, so that's my hint to you. If you're making it the night before, put the bananas in the bottom too. Cooled pie crust at the ready. I'm going to add in a little bit of my vanilla custard just in the bottom. It'll be like an anchor for my bananas. Smooth it out so you have a thin layer. Now let's add a layer of bananas in. This pie will have a beautiful fresh banana taste with that vanilla, and it's just going to be amazing. If you're using artificial ingredients, there's no point, in my humble opinion. Now we can pour in the rest of the filling. If you want, you can do a couple layers of bananas and pie filling, but I like just one on the top and one on the bottom. There we go. Look at all of that. So once again, this will be totally covered. So I should just stop. What am I doing? I can't help it. I can't. Give it a little wiggle, and you're ready to serve. Except this needs to set, I would say, overnight. So if you're going to do this in the morning, it'll be ready in the evening. Give it like 4 to 5 hours. If you want to do it the night before, I think even better. Do you think I have a swap out? I do. I almost forgot to tell you, make sure you cover with plastic before you put it in the fridge. There we go. Nice and set. Little jiggle, but it'll hold when you cut it. Let's whip up some whipped cream because it is a banana cream pie. You need a big, giant mound of whipped cream to finish this off. The amount of whipped cream is totally up to you. It's a very personal choice, but I'm going to go for about 2 cups of cream. Whip it up with a little bit less than a 1/4 cup of confectioner sugar. The cornstarch in the confectioner sugar will help stabilize the whipped cream as well. Okay, keep an eye on this. You don't want it to overwhip. Totally lost track of time. Oh my gosh. That almost went too far. Okay, add a splash of vanilla in. Flip it on low. There we go, all done. Ooh, John. Top of the... dumps them all on there. Love that crisp pastry crust. Oh, I just want to give it a hug and really just shove it in my mouth. It's so good. All the bananas. First of all, I'm eating bananas and whipped cream as a snack now. That is delicious. But with the pastry cream and the crispy pastry crust, perfection. If you like this recipe, check out my dreamy, indulgent chocolate silk pie. It is just heavenly. Thanks so much for watching. If you like my videos, hit that like.
Okay, so you can see in the video, he par baked his crust and then topped it with some beans. Okay, so to give it a solid structure before adding your bananas, your custard cream, and then your whipped cream on top. The vanilla whipped cream on top. Now let's do some fruit tart. Okay, so tapos na tayo with pies. Let's do some French fruit tarts. Smaller ones.
Welcome back to our farmhouse. As you can see, this amazing French rustic looking kitchen. My name is Stefan. If you don't know me, this is the French Cooking Academy, and this is the place to come if you want to learn to cook authentic French food. Now, many of you on the comments have been asking if we could do some baking, and apparently there's still some red fruits around the market, and I haven't done some baking for some time, so I thought, why not try to make some red fruit tarts? So the fruit tartlets or red fruit tartlets. How do we go about and what exactly are we going to make today? I'm going to try the classic one, plain vanilla with the short crust. We're going to put some crème pâtissière or pastry cream on top and then put our fruits. That's going to be our tartlets number one. The number two I want to try is the recipe from the patisserie chef Pierre Hermé, one of the best in France, that proposed to have a new types of filling. It is a mix of macerated strawberries with sugar and butter and use this as a filling. That, I think, might be interesting. Let's go. Okay, so now that we've got everything we need, all the utensils, we're ready to start the recipe. So first off, the ingredients, as always, mise en place, and this is the rough guide of the ingredients. We're going to be using flour, corn flour, sugar, and some eggs, fresh milk, whole milk, plain butter, and nice vanilla beans here. And for the fruits, of course, red fruit, strawberries, and also some raspberries. All the ingredients will be listed in the video description. And now let's start our recipe. So the recipe of the day, of course, is the red fruit tartlets. We're going to do strawberry and raspberry. Step number one, always try to make your short crust pastry yourself. It's much better than the one you buy in a shop, and it's actually pretty easy to do. Today we're going to use a recipe from Pierre Hermé, one of the best pastry chefs in France, and that proposed something a little bit different. So let's go through it. I'm using a large bowl because I don't have really a bench top to work with. We need to put the butter, cut in small pieces, at room temperature. And the goal of the exercise here, oh my god, this is like, get that spatula. This is fragile, this is gonna break. Anyway, you have to soften the butter first. And when it's gonna be soft enough, so that you can mix it with your spatula like this, we're gonna add a little bit of milk. So first step, you soften all of the butter with a spatula. Now once your butter has got this kind of consistency, what we call the beurre pommade in French, and technical terms here, which is the same as an ointment, and that kind of soft yet firm type of consistency. You see the butter? And so this is what we call beurre pommade. So you mix it well with the spatula like this, that Pierre Hermé is telling us. And from here we're going to take some milk, the 50 ml of milk, and about a small teaspoon of salt in there. Mix well. And we're going to introduce, apparently I've never done this one before, but apparently we need to put the milk in the butter and start to incorporate this with the butter. That's what I'm going to do now. Alright, Don, I'm not too sure what the goal of the exercise is with the milk and the butter, because that doesn't really seem to incorporate, but let's not question our pastry chef. The next step apparently consists of incorporating your flour bit by bit using a sieve. So I'm going to go gently, one bit at a time, and then it says do not mix too vigorously. So we're going to gently incorporate the butter, with the milk and the flour, until it makes a big kind of dough like that. And then when you reach that paste-like consistency, you can add more flour. So you get the idea. So bit by bit, until all the flour is in, without mixing the whole thing too fast. You want to be gentle, All done. So I've washed my hands. Very important, do wash your hands before you start to do anything with your hands like this, touching a dough, because people are going to eat that. So that's very important for the hygiene. Now, you may notice there's no sugar in that particular recipe, because for that recipe the pastry chef did not put any sugar in the dough, because the pastry cream is extremely sweet. However, if you want to add sugar, you can, and you put it in the milk with the salt, like I had in here, if you want to have a sweet type of short crust. But anyway, we continue with the recipe. So from here, it is just a matter of gathering the whole lot in a bowl like this. So very gentle, and as you can see, it's a proper dough. And we're going to leave this in the fridge to rest. So we're going to wrap it with paper. If you want, you can flatten it a little bit to prepare for after. Put some plastic wrap in the fridge for at least 1 hour of resting time. 2 hours is ideal. So now that my dough is resting in the fridge, it's been an hour already, it's been in the fridge, but I'm going to go for the 2 hours, which is the sweet spot. And from here, it is time for me to try that second filling that I've talked about, the strawberry with butter. So what you need to do, you need to macerate strawberries in sugar first for an hour. So I'm going to take my strawberries, I'll put the quantities in the video description, and you get rid of that, and just put the strawberries in there. Beautiful. When that's done, we just need apparently to cover the strawberries with sugar, mix them a little, not too much like this, just give them a bit of a turn, and we're going to leave them in the fridge to macerate for 1 hour. So I'm going to do that now. My pastry, my short crust is out of the fridge, so I'm going to remove this, and we're just going to sprinkle a bit of flour, and I'm going to have to try to lay down in a 3 millimeters thin. Okay, so to the best of my ability, I've flattened some of the dough, and what I'm going to do with these tartlet molds I've got here, I'm just going to take the whole size and use this as a cutter because I don't have anything at hand. Alright, got my mold here, this is the thing I've cut, and basically I'm just going to go around and fill these as much as I can. Now, once you've done, and you've put the dough in all of your little molds there, I'm going to take a fork and do the usual little holes. Now, blind baking is the most important thing here. When you do these French tartlets, especially with red fruits like, raspberries and strawberries, you don't cook them, you have to pre-bake this. So once you've got this parchment paper, and you put this in your mold, and you have to put some weight, so it can be like these special cooking beans. I really don't have any equipment right here today, so I'm going to use just some peas here. And it's just to add a little weight on there, okay? We're going to leave this like this, do that for each one, and we're going to cook this in the oven 190 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes, and for all of the tartlet molds. Okay, my tartlets are in the oven, and now we can make the pastry cream, a very important recipe. The pastry cream, it is the filling used a lot in a lot of cakes and French patisseries. We need to use the fresh vanilla beans. Just as a reminder, the vanilla beans, they always have to be cut in the middle, like that, to open and expose the seeds in there. And then with the knife, you usually scrape out the seeds that we're going to put in the milk. So for our pastry cream, you're going to take all of the milk, put them in a pan, and gentle heat, and you're going to divide your sugar into, we're going to put half of the sugar in there, and most important, this, the vanilla pod that we just opened. So all the seeds are in there, but you also put the pod in here to make sure you got everything. When that's done, you take a little whisk, and you're going to gently mix the seeds with the sugar. And we're going to bring that milk gently to the boil. While your milk is warming up, you're going to take your egg yolks, that's 4 of them, the rest of the sugar, you're going to take all of the corn flour and put everything in. And again, with the whisk, gently, you're going to incorporate the corn flour in the egg and sugar mix. As soon as your milk boils like this, turn the heat off. I'm going to put some of the milk in our egg mix. You can now take your boiling milk, and we're going to add a little bit, and not too much not to cook the eggs immediately, just to mix this. And when you get into like temperature has been cooled down, then you can put the rest of the milk. And we're just going to filter out all the bits, and you get rid of the cream here, and you can also get rid of the vanilla pod for now. Okay, we can now just add back all of our mix, and we're going to cook it. So make sure you got the vanilla pod in there, with the seeds, and we're going to bring the milk back to the beans oil gently while whisking. So we're going to stay in front of the pan and whisk gently until it starts thickening. Right, so like I said, you keep whisking because you see what's happening. The mix starts to thicken very, very quickly. And this is the intention with the crème pâtissière or pastry cream. It's not a custard like the liquid one that you cannot boil. This one, actually, you have to have it to boil. You need to cook the eggs. And look at this, you see? It starts to be really, really thick very, very quickly. And there we have it, look at this. You've got the boiling. So from here you can reduce your heat and cook the cream for 1 minute. And after 1 minute we're going to turn the heat off, and basically our pastry cream is ready. We're going to reserve it in a clean container. Alright, we're all set. I'm ready to almost serve. So the last step for the pastry cream from Pierre Hermé, there's a lot of butter. I've stopped using that whisk because it's next to unusable, but you get the idea. If you have a bowl or anything like this, my pastry cream is still warm, and I'm gonna incorporate, so you want to use a whisk for that, to really make it nice and smooth, and that's gonna prevent the mix dry too much and make it nice and smooth for the tartlets. Now for this special filling, which is a bit odd, I'm really questioning it, is you have to take really softened butter, so totally softened like this, and you just then need to take the strawberries that have been macerated and apparently kind of press them through a drum sieve. I don't have that, the only thing I've got is this. So, apparently you need to crush them through one by one, so I'm gonna go and do that and see how far I can get. Okay, maybe I didn't have the best material, but I've tried. All what I got is basically some kind of strawberry juice. And I'm not too sure that mixing this with butter is going to transform into a cream, so I'm going to try to use a whisk. I'll keep warming up the butter like this and keep whisking and see what happens. I'll show you the result in a bit. Okay, so here's the situation. I think I had too much liquid. I've removed some of the liquid, and the whisk I've got, look at this. You can't do anything with it. But I think this is the intended result. A raspberry cream. Okay, we're all done. So the tartlets are out of the oven. So first problem I had with these molds here. I told you to get that weird shape. And look what happened. This is one side, and the other side is like this. So they're not the standard tartlet mold. So you want to be using the standard one, but I'm still going to try to use it. So that's okay. Let's try to see how we go. Once you've got your tartlet here, it's just a matter of taking some of the pastry cream and coating gently the bottom or the base of the tartlet with cream. We're not going to overdo it, but you get the idea. Next is time to just add the fruit. So you see it's just an assembly. So I'm going to use some of the raspberry that I had here. And you just select the good ones, and we're going to go around and just basically dress up a little tart here. And once the raspberries are on, usually you have to glaze the top, but because there's not too many fruits, I'm using here a paintbrush, and it is some like raspberry jam with a little bit of water, and you just want to give a little glaze on the top to give a little shine. And finally, from here, the only thing I've got at my disposal is a few mint leaves, but they always work pretty well on these leaves, and so you don't need to do something too complicated. But for home, you know, if you got a party of people around, that's one example as a little raspberry tartlet. Of course, you don't have to use a raspberry per se. You can also use strawberries, as this is another example. This is the strawberry tartlet. And to finish our tartlet series, let's try the bizarre strawberry cream that we had. It is a bit of an odd one, this one. So same thing here. We need to really gently, because this is super fragile, I'm going to gently try to apply this layer of that cream. We're almost there. I put all the strawberries, and apparently it shows on the book that you have to put multiple mint leaves in the middle. I think there's like one big one, and roughly speaking, you get something like that. And this is called a strawberry délice with a tartlet made with a strawberry buttercream topped with fresh strawberries, mint, and glazed with a strawberry marmalade. Yes! Made it finally, the free iteration of the French style tartlet. Actually they are harder than they look, but here you have the raspberry tartlet. This is a standard strawberry tartlet, so both of these with pastry cream bottom, and you're gonna have to let them cool down in the fridge for an hour to make sure it solidifies the bottom a bit, and the creams are nice and tender. And this is the Pierre Hermé délice of strawberries with a strawberry buttercream. Quite interesting. Now it's very fragile, so I can't cut them open, unfortunately. I've tasted on the sides, Of course, pastry cream absolutely delicious. And that buttercream is interesting, but I think for some people it might be too buttery. But that's it for me, guys. I leave you with this picture, and I'll see you all next week for another French cooking video on the French Cooking Academy. And don't forget, you can follow me on Instagram. You can become a patron on my Patreon page, and it's new now. I've got merchandise. If you want to buy the channel t-shirts, you can do that.
Okay, and to wrap up our tartlets, okay, so let's, I'll show you this last clip, okay. This is how precise everything should be, okay. So even the sizing of the mold is being considered, the thickness, the height, everything in pastry, it needs to be calculated. So hindi pwedeng tansya-tansya in pastry, even with the shape and size of everything, okay. Because in pastry, appearance is one of the top priorities. Okay? If it doesn't look good, doesn't look nice, doesn't look sweet, doesn't look appetizing, usually people will not get it. Okay, so let's, this is another fruit tart, but see the difference in presentation and appearance.
Hey bakers, John Knopf from Peppy Kitchen here, and today we're making these amazing fruit tarts. Perfectly baked, formed, delicious pastry shells filled with pastry cream, the most amazing custard you've ever had in your life. And of course, they're topped with fresh fruits, washed with an apricot brandy glaze for a little bit of sparkle and deliciousness. Let's get started. First off, we're going to make our dreamy pastry cream. This is custard sent from heaven, but you need to chill it first, so we want to get this done as soon as possible, if not the day before. Day before is fine. You can do a lot of this prep the day before and assemble the day of. It'll be really easy. Start off by taking a vanilla bean, splitting it lengthwise, and then just scrape out all those amazing black seeds. Place that into a saucepan along with 2 cups of milk, whole please, and then heat that over like medium heat until it starts to simmer, like just about to boil. Take it off the heat, set it aside, and we're going to work on our egg yolks. Take 6 egg yolks along with 2/3 of a cup of sugar. You can do a little bit more if you want it. It's totally up to you. Pinch of salt, and give it a nice whisk. Whisk, 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 whisk until it becomes like a light lemony yellow color. Now it's time to sift in a 1/4 cup of cornstarch and then keep whisking. Stir, 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 stir. We're going to have a nice homogeneous mixture. And now we're going to temper that. So we're going to add in like 1/2 cup or so of the hot milk. Drizzle it in while you whisk. This is a great time to have a helper to hold the bowl for you. After your mixture is all tempered, we're going to slowly drizzle in the rest of that warm milk while we whisk. So whisk, whisk, whisk. Our goal is not to have scrambled eggs. Just a nice warm egg mixture. Take the mixture and strain it into a pot. You can use the same pot, but just clean it out first. It's nice to have no residues or anything lumpy in there. Take it over a medium heat and whisk. You're going to whisk until it thickens up. You'll see a lot of bubbles at first. The bubbles will start disappearing, and then it'll start thickening unevenly. So you really have to whisk hard at this point. You don't want any lumps, and you want it to be nice and evenly cooked. Once your mixture is really nice and thick, take it off the heat, transfer it to a glass bowl, cover that bowl with plastic wrap so the film is touching the custard. That way the custard won't develop a skin to it. And now it's ready to pop into the fridge for an hour or 2 or overnight. You want it to be nice and cool. To make the tart shell, I'm using a cup or 226 grams of unsalted butter, a cup and 2/3 or 160 grams of confectioner sugar. I'm adding in a healthy pinch or about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, as well as a teaspoon of vanilla extract. You could also use vanilla bean paste if you want to be fancy. I find that by using a more room temperature butter, your mixture is a little bit more homogeneous. But you can use cold butter too and just whip the heck out of it into a nice paste. Whip it all up until it becomes a paste, at which point we can start adding in our 6 egg yolks. You can just dump them in all at once. You will have to scrape the bowl down. I'm warning you ahead of time. You want this mixture to be perfectly homogeneous. Once that's all homogeneous, we're going to add in a pound of flour, 450 grams, and now we're going to whip it up for like 40 seconds or so. You want it to become kind of a shaggy mixture. Once your mixture is all nice and shaggy, we're going to dump it out onto a sheet of very lightly floured parchment paper, and I want to tell you, this will be divided into like 3 batches to make it manageable, unless you have parchment paper this big. This is going to be rolled out to 3 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch, and you're going to use one of these guys if you have it. The rollers, the bumpers come in so handy. I bought this on vacation as like a lark, and it's become my new favorite roller, even though it is the least physically attractive. So roll it out between the 2 layers of parchment paper, and then pop it into the fridge on a baking sheet. It needs to cool down, maybe like half an hour to an hour. You can do it before as well, like the night before. Just wrap it in plastic or something so it doesn't dry out in the fridge. That's important. I have my chilled the paper lightly, like put the paper back on, turn it around, bright eyes, and now we'll have a nice surface that I can remove the pastry from without it sticking. You don't want it to stick, it warms up immediately. These are the traditional tart shells you probably have at home. They have a removable piece in the middle that has been placed someplace else. I'll find it later. I'm not going to use this. I just have difficulty with them, and you have to like dock the pastry, you have to like put the pie weights down. There's a lot of stuff they want you to do, and it's just a little bit of a hassle. So I started using these guys. These are made by De Bayer for the Valrhona Chocolate School, and they're amazing. They come in lots of different shapes. Squares, they have lots of circles, they have ovals, I have all of them. I started off with just the circles, and I started buying because I was like making a bunch of videos for them. But they last forever, they're really well made, and they are so good at making perfect tarts. It's crazy. Let me show you how this works. So first of all, just press down. Okay, look at that. That's our tart base. It's not going to leave the ring. All we have to do is add in the wall, and it's so easy. Take a ruler, cut out a strip, and then one more cut. Okay, now I have my beautiful strip of pastry dough. I didn't measure this out like I normally do to find the circumference of the circle, but we can just eyeball it. So we'll have a little bit of extra pastry, but that's okay. Cut the excess off. You want it to overlap after you press, maybe just like 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so press, this is the key. All these little perforations here, you're going to press the pastry dough into them like this, and then press that together like that. Okay, now we have our almost perfect tart. What's left? This excess has to be cut off. So let's do this. Okay. So satisfying. This is going to go into the freezer now, and once it's frozen, we can pop it into the oven. I'll show you a couple things first. Look how beautiful this looks. The amazing part is it bakes just like this. There's no puffing, no sagging. It's amazing. Freezing it is imperative though, so this one goes in right away. I'm going to make a couple of these. I'll do a square one next. It's a little bit more challenging, but not too much. I should have been more strategic with where I cut my dough out. Okay, the dough's warming up, so I got to be a little bit more careful. And let's cut another strip out. I'm going to eyeball it. All right. Perfect strip of pastry. Now we're going to place this really carefully because the dough is warming up into our tart shell. For these rings that have 90-degree angles, you have to really like mind the corners because the dough doesn't naturally want to do that. Okay, cut the excess off and then just keep pressing. Press down. Oh wait, I totally forgot to show you something for the other one. Let me show it to you now though. So, in order to form a bond, you're going to want to press with your finger, or you can use some kind of a smoothing tool, and just press the corner, and that'll cause it to like glue itself together during baking. And you're also going to, again, press the pastry against the wall, so when you do that, some of the pastry is going into those perforations and it forms like a little bit of a glue during baking so it doesn't fall down. And now we're going to cut this one again. So just take a knife and cut the excess so it's flush. Here we have our square tart also ready to go into the freezer. I'm excited. This one, you might have to add like one little hole in the center for steam to escape. I'm just warning you ahead of time. Okay, the other key to baking these I want to show you right now while those are in the freezer is this guy. It's a perforated, can you hear me through it? It's a perforated silicone mat. I have a link for this as well in the description box. They come in, again, so handy, but hard to find on Amazon, surprisingly. The whole point of these is that the air will like go underneath the mat and bake evenly and also allow the steam to escape so they don't puff up as much. Place your frozen tart shells onto your perforated silicone mat. Fahrenheit. 15 minutes. It depends on if you want them to be like a little bit underbaked but beautiful and light. They'll still be crisp, or if you want them to kind of crisp up even more and get that nice dark golden color. Remember to check them after like 2 to 3 minutes to see if they're sagging, and if they are, just press the sides in and put them back in and you'll be fine. I have a batch that came out of the oven and cooled down a bit. I want to show you how satisfying this whole ring situation is. So take a look at that, and then look at this. Look at the sides. The bottom has that nice texture like a bakery would have. Now I know their secrets. And you can see like the inside is like perfectly formed. This is a great tart shell. I'm so excited for this process. The other ones came out nicely too. Little rectangular ones as well that I made off camera. But I'm going to set these aside. My pastry cream is cool now too, so let's give that a whip and get to assembling. Wait. What do we have to do first? We have to make our glaze for all the fruits. For that glaze, I have half a cup of apricot preserves in a little bowl, adding a tablespoon of water to thin it out, and a tablespoon of brandy to make it interesting. Tablespoon and a blessing. Alright, so we're going to microwave this and just get it warm and then mix it up and strain it. Because there are some apricot pieces in there. Ooh, it's really hot. Really hot. Finish straining. This will be perfect for brushing onto my fruits. It smells amazing. And the last thing before assembly is this pastry cream. I made this batch last night. Plastic off, and you can see it really holds its shape. Too much to pipe, so we're going to whisk it up just to like kind of, smooth things out, calm it down a bit, make it more pipeable. You don't want to pipe the hot pastry cream in there though, because the steam will like make the pastry soggy. Okay, that is much smoother now, so I can pipe it, fill it, it'll be really nice. Start off by piping a layer of custard onto your cooled tart shells. Then a range of various slices of fruits. I'm using some preserved peaches. I love the color and the flavor is really nice. Strawberries, kiwi slices, blackberries, raspberries, the works. You can arrange this in any kind of pattern you want. Do a mishmash, all one kind of fruit, or a variety for that beautiful composition like you'd see in a bakery. Once your tart shells are all filled with fruit, you're going to give them a nice brushing of that apricot jam. This will seal all of the color in, the flavors, and they won't like wither away right away in the fridge if you're going to serve them later. You can add a little sprig of mint for a touch of green if you want to, and they're ready to enjoy. I've been looking forward to making this and eating it forever. I used to go to these like little cafes in Westwood, where UCLA is, where I went to school, and they would have these fresh tarts. But they were not that fresh, but they were still good. So now I get to have the freshest of fresh tarts just for me with the best ingredients, no preservatives. Let's get this bitten. The pastry cream is so gentle, custardy, just the right amount of vanilla. I'm in a daze. Tartmatized. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you like my videos. You can hit that like button and subscribe if you do. If you like this video, check out my German chocolate cake tutorial. That cake is mind.
Okay, so you can see how everything is measured correctly. Walang tansya, walang chamba in terms of pastry. From your crust to your layering, to your baking, to your equipment that is used. So everything is placed there. Okay. Everything is used precisely. Okay, from your sugar glaze to your fruits cut precisely. Right. So with pastry, okay, with your pies and tarts, you can actually come up with your own. You can fill it up with whatever filling that you want. Okay, you can use different ingredients like tea, coffee, cream, custard, milk. Okay, so pretty much anything. So it's up to your creativity. Okay, you just need to follow the certain baking processes like blind baking, par baking your crust, determining which type of crust you will be using. Okay, so is it a crumble crust? Is it your sugar crust? Is it your flaky crust? And then you, if your filling is moist, add a little chocolate under, so it becomes your waterproofing base before you add your filling. Okay, so with pies and tarts, you can actually play around with as much flavors and decors as you want. Okay, so you guys have any questions regarding pies and tarts? None so far? Clear man? Okay. All right. So that covers pretty much our first part. And then on Thursday, I was talking to Chef yesterday. Okay, I will give you this is not part of your module, but I will give you decorating and piping instructions. Okay, para kasi nakita ko yung decorating na parang medyo flimsy pa ng konti. So medyo, we can still polish it. I will give you instructions, I will give you tips, I will give you demos, video demos on how to pipe properly, especially if you're doing cakes, cupcakes, anything to do with icings. Okay, so that will be our topic on Thursday. Okay, so that's it for our discussion on pies and tarts. Okay, and then nice meeting everyone in class yesterday. Okay, so sorry hindi ko kayo nakilala kasi ang dami kong class and it's my first time meeting everybody. Okay, hopefully I can go back to one of your sessions this coming weeks. Okay, so that's it from my end. I will see you guys again on Thursday. Thursday, yes, Thursday. Let's do our cameras on para lang I can check everybody's attendance. Okay, cameras on tayo, lights on. Okay, so all right. Okay, so that's I will do a screenshot. Okay, 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay, that's it from my end. I will see you guys again on Thursday. So our class is Thursday 9. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day. I'll see you again on Thursday.
Bye, Chef. Thank you po.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Chef.
Bye.